All right. Thank you, Wendy. Hello, everyone, again. Those who never seen me before, yeah, I've been with USA Fit for quite some time. Started as a runner down in Houston, kind of moved my way up from uh, the Galleria area up to Cyprus. When I heard that they had a USA Fit here, I eventually joined them as a runner, then became like a pace coach. Um, then I took over the quality workout, and I was asked to see if I can do the ATP program, and I've been doing it for multiple years. So I've been running for multiple decades, been helping a lot of people out for multiple decades too as well. Besides what Wendy mentioned, I really focus on like sports performance, really working on like running form, the optimal running form to make it a little easier to run, because when you run real tight, you tire yourself out. If you can get yourself to run in an optimal position, or even walk in an optimal position, then it just makes it easier, makes it more enjoyable, and you conserve a lot of energy, and you can run further, longer, faster for anybody. Okay, so like Wendy mentioned, I'm going to talk to you today about ideal running and walking form. Okay, so there are two differences between walking and running. All right, running is a one contact activity, and what I mean by that is that when you run, you're going to be on one leg as you're moving forward. Okay, walking is different. Walking, there will be 2 points of contact as you're moving forward. All right, so that's one of the biggest difference. So when I start talking about the proper running and walking form, there's going to be slight differences, but there's going to be some similarities between the two. So we're going to start off with the head. Okay, well, from the head down to the legs. We're going to start off with running first, jogging too as well. Okay, so with running or jogging, the ideal head position, again, this is for like optimizations to make you a more efficient runner. All right, you can run, anybody can run, but if you want to run efficiently, there are certain things that you want to kind of work on to make it easier so you can do your best, right? So again, we'll start with the head. When you're running, or you want to keep the head up, okay? Chin up, look straight. You can gaze down with just your eyes to look at the ground to see what's in front of you so you don't trip over things. But ideally, you want your chin up, looking straight. Reason for this is because when we're breathing in air, right? So if our head's up, the passage from our mouth to our throat to our lungs is nice and open. But if we have our head down, okay, that collapses that tube from your mouth to your lungs. So if you try to breathe, you're going to be breathing against resistance. Okay, again, we're trying to work on optimization. We're trying to make things easier for us to be able to breathe, so we can utilize the oxygen to fuel our muscles to run fast, right? So head up, you're able to breathe real easily. Head down, a little more resistance, more difficult. So keep the head up. Let's work our way down to our shoulders. All right, so our daily activity, a lot of us sit in front of computers, drive for multiple hours, look at our cell phones. We're always crunched forward, right? So because we're doing that, it restricts the chest wall. Okay, again, because you have all that collapse of the chest, if you try to take a deep breath, even if you do it right now, the way you're sitting, try to take a deep breath, you can feel resistance around the chest, kind of towards the back a little bit up here, because you can't expand the chest very completely, basically, okay? But if you have the shoulders nice and relaxed, kind of roll back, take a deep breath, you're able to expand the whole chest a lot easier with less resistance. Again, we're trying to get as much air into our lungs so we can fuel our muscles so we can run fast, okay? Not only does having the shoulders relax and slightly pull back help with the breathing, it actually puts our arm in an ideal position, okay? When we're running, our arms should be swinging naturally, okay? When your shoulders are in front of you and up high, when you run, your arm's going to naturally kind of want to cross the midline of the body. It's okay to have some minor crosses, but you don't want to be swinging the arms completely past that midline of the body. It's not very efficient. You're wasting a lot of energy. You're fighting forces trying to rotate that upper body. So you want to keep it nice and streamlined, okay? Now we'll go ahead and move to the arms. The arms, you want it ideally close to 90 degrees. It doesn't have to be so rigid, a 90-degree angle, okay? They could be kind of in between this kind of range, okay? close to 90 degrees. The thing with the hands, you want to relax. You don't want it nice and tight, right? We're not robots, okay? You want to relax. Think of having like a can, beer can, Coke can, whichever beverage you prefer, right? I gotta relate to you guys. I gotta relate. So whatever your beverage is, preference, you want to imagine holding that in your hand, right? There you go. Might be a little bit difficult, right? Depending on what type of glass you're holding. But yes, whatever you prefer. Basically, keep the hands nice and relaxed. Okay, it could be to the side. It could be kind of relaxed, pointing downwards. Whatever is more comfortable to keep the hands relaxed. Because if you're tight, holding a fist with your hands, your forearm's gonna be tight, your arms gonna be tight, your shoulders gonna be tight, and you're gonna be really rigid as in when you're trying to run. Okay, relax arms, floppy arms. Okay. Should be nice, smooth movement when you're running, okay? Now, we go from the arms to the hips, okay? With the hips, what's gonna happen with us, because again, because of our daily activity, we spend most of the time sitting around and stuff like that, our hips gonna be kind of pointing down towards the ground a little bit, okay? The muscles in the hip area is kind of tight, so we don't have that good range of motion and flexibility like we should if we were always mobile and walking around. So if you put your hands on top of the crest of your hips, have your finger like this, you can kind of see where your hips are pointing. If it's pointing downwards, it point down to the ground. You want to kind of point it straight in front of you. Kind of tuck the butt underneath the torso, all right? So when you do that, what happens, it actually opens up the range of motion of your legs as when you're running and driving, okay? Driving forward with your legs. When the hips are pointing downwards, you're already in a flex position, so it kind of limits that range of motion. Why is that important? Because the bigger range of motion you have with your leg, the longer the stride length, okay? A stride length is basically how much distance you cover with one footstep. The longer your stride length, the more distance you cover and less footsteps, the faster you are, all right? Now, if the stride length is shorter, then again, you're covering a smaller area, and then you're not covering as much area as you could if you have a nice full range of motion with the leg, right? So up to now, from the head to the hip to this part that I'm talking about, there's could be a difference between running and walking. Because up to now, everything's the same, okay? We'll continue on with the running portion. Now we're gonna go from our hips down to our knees. With the knee, what you want is you want a high knee drive, okay? What that is basically you're driving the knee up and high. Now, distance runner, we're not gonna be like sprinters where we're driving super high, but you want it fairly decent height when you bring up the knee. Reason for this is because as we're driving our knee up and high, that's gonna allow us to land in a position that's ideally fairly close to underneath our body, okay? We're not gonna be reaching out too far in front of our body, but kind of close to just underneath the body. That will allow you to go from this position to drive forward ahead of you, okay? If you don't have a high knee drive, then your foot may place slightly in front of you because you're trying to swing your legs to move you forward instead of pushing off with your leg, okay? So by not landing underneath the body, it could cause some stresses on some parts of your from your foot all the way up to your hip to your back. That can cause some injuries and things of that sort. So that's why when those who've been in my ATP program, I always say, you know, high knee, is because we're trying to reinforce that movement of getting that knee drive nice and high so we can kind of land close to underneath the body so we can push off to make ourselves more efficient, okay? Now, as for like foot placement, okay? So for foot placement, ideally, like I just kind of mentioned with the high knee, is you want it close to where most of the body weight is at, okay? You don't want your foot too far in front of you. That's called overstriding. Puts a lot of stress on different parts of your body. It can lead to injuries, especially the hamstring. When people try to run fast, for example, like for the interval works, you guys got the quality workouts coming up, right? So for quality workouts, when you're trying to run fast, a lot of people are trying to run fast by reaching forward, okay, instead of driving with the back leg. And that tends to be what we call overstriding, okay? It's a lot of stress on that hamstring, and that's why people will pull their hamstring, because they're trying to reach and trying to pull with their leg instead of pushing off with the leg, all right? So that's the running ideal form. Let's go back to the walking, okay? Like I said, from the head to the hip area was pretty much the same, but here's where the difference is when we talk about walking, okay? Again, you still want the hips kind of point straight in front of you, not down, okay? So we can have a good range of motion. With walking, what happens with walking, if you ever watch like the Olympics or any events where you got the power walkers, so you see that they really kind of drive the hips forward. It almost looks like they're kind of walking like that. That's going to be your difference between running and walking. Why? Because they have to compensate for the 2 points of contact, right? Because the moment that knee comes up high and they're driving forward, they're no longer walking, they're disqualified, they're now jogging or running, okay? So it is a completely different technique than running or jogging, okay? But what they're doing is basically they're just shifting the hips to drive the body forward, okay? So they have a little more rotation in the hips compared to a runner or jogger who are just kind of driving forward, okay? As for the knee drive, again, because the knee cannot come up high, because you always have to have 2 points of contact when you're moving forward, okay? The knee drive is not as high, so they're going to be kind of rolling as they're moving forward, okay? Yes, the leg comes up slightly because you have to pick up your leg, but the movement, once they start moving forward, that other foot's already in contact with the ground, and they're just kind of rolling the foot from heel to toe to get themselves in the direction that they're trying to go, all right? Now from the knee down to the foot again. I have seen some runners some walkers, when they're trying to walk fast, they're doing exactly the same thing that runners would do when they try to run fast. They're reaching out in front of them, like really far in front. You're still having that same idea where you're landing just underneath the body and rolling your foot, okay? So you don't want your foot too far in front of you. You want it just slightly in front to just underneath the whole body, okay? And then again, you're shifting the hips as you're doing that. It's a lot going on with running, walking, and jogging, okay? What I would recommend if you do try to do anything, just fix the head. Just look up, look straight. When you do that, it kind of realigns pretty much all of the body for the most part. There are some exercises you can do too that you got to think about how to be specific for what you're trying to do. So if you're a runner, you want to work on a lot of single leg strength, right? Single leg strength and balance. Walkers, you'll focus more on double contact strength, okay? So again, anybody can walk, anybody can run, but if you want to do it for performance, to be fast, fluid, with ease, with the least amount of effort, those are the ideal body positions for both running, jogging, and walking, all right?